Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for one of our favorite shows, This Week with Wendy. The one show, maybe the only show, to give you some real talk, the real scoop about the SoCal estate of mind. With our host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley, Orange County, decided, I'm going to do something different. And so she did. She created Veracity Real Estate. Veracity was built around a concept of renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels. Yeah, that's something you don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. And through it all, she's built a company of data-driven, we call them divas, kind of nerds a little bit, but they're into the details, they're into the facts, and they're into the future all the time. Where is this going? What comes up next? And it sounds like Wendy was really firmly in the future. This past week, she was at the iOi summit. Is that what they call it here?
Yes, it was so much fun. I mean, as you know, I am always talking about what just happened last week.
Yeah.
I'm looking backwards, but for once I was like deeply in the weeds with all these forward-thinking people and the technology and the way it's shaping the future of our world and real estate in particular is fascinating.
So real quick, what is it? Then I know you launch into it. What was the iOi
Now,
summit?
Paul, you are way jumping ahead,
Am I
aren't
jumping ahead?
you?
Okay.
That's okay. You
I
can
wanna
ask your
know.
question.
I want to know.
What is iOi? Innovation, Opportunity, and Investment. So
In the real estate world.
in particular, this summit was hosted by the National Association of Realtors. So yeah, it was real estate.
And you got to go cover it on behalf of OC Talk Radio
That's
in your
right,
show.
Paul.
You were there
I
in
was
the thick of it.
representing, yes.
And talking to everybody. You were just telling me offline, somebody you met, Amazon or whatever, you're talking to somebody.
A big wig, a big dig.
You started to say something.
A big dig. No, a big wig.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course I couldn't interview him on record. He was too big a deal. So, but he was very nice and actually spoke to me.
On background, he actually
On
sat and
background,
talked
it
to you
was
about
kinda
this. So
shocking.
you get a chance to...
Yeah, Paul, that's the part we said was confidential, not for airing on the
I know.
air.
Thanks. That's why I was like, whoops. But yeah, so obviously I took a little time off from the live show here. And we were good enough to revisit two of my favorites.
Yes.
Tiffany Yelverton, founder of Entice Me, talked about
That's a
reclaiming our
wild
bedrooms.
show.
I love her though. She really brings common sense and data,
Yeah.
and pure information it's not just romance. It's more. It's
There's
holistic.
science.
There's science behind it. It's like it's part of our wellness. I mean, we are carnal human beings, right? And she addresses a part of it we don't talk about, but it's there, people. Our bedrooms are there. We know what they're for.
Paul, we've got to get you out more if you thought that was a wild show.
I thought that was a wild show.
No.
He should have been with me at the summit then.
You really should have been.
Yeah.
That was a wild show.
Really futuristic stuff.
Oh
All right.
my goodness.
I
right?
can't wait to hear. Tell us all about it.
Well, I also want to give a nod back to Rick Sharguy. Had you replay his episode deliberately? Because as you'll recall, that was in January, and he was forecasting what was going to happen through this year and into next. So I want to get him on at the end of this year so we can do a backward glance and go, okay, how do we do with our predictions? So that's
Yeah.
going to be fun.
Right.
So yeah, but as you said, being a credentialed member of the media, which is not something I'm accustomed to, I was able to get in the weeds with these innovators, and they all sat down and spoke with me, and a lot of the big deal VC venture capitalists sat down and talked to me about what they're looking for and what they found, useful and worthwhile at the event. It was wonderful.
And what I found fascinating too is we were sitting down doing our recap. You also were able to interview a wide swath of investors, from
Yes.
angels up through VCs. So you got to look into their investment strategies at different stratifications and with different knowledge entering into PropTech, which this show is all about, which is property technology, which we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here to help me unpack it because there's just so many layers to this onion, more than I realized. It was truly educational for me. But for a moment, let's just do what I traditionally do and let's unpack what happened last week. So as of yesterday, Orange County had 30,638 new active listings, which brought us to almost 5,200 month to date. That's about 42% below normal at this stage in September. We put just under 2,000 homes under contract in escrow. So at that rate, month to date, it would take about 55 days to sell through all the standing inventory. And that's a lot longer than is normal for September. This is looking more like a November, December statistic, but we did peak and then move into our seasonal adjustment about 2 months early this year. So we're following the same consistent pattern. It's taking about 49% longer to sell a home this September than in prior Septembers. And what's really shocking is we've only sold 435 homes in the entire county so far this month. That again is 42% below normal. So we're seeing 42% less available inventory is yielding 42% fewer sales, kind of common sense. And median price is just hanging in there by its fingernails, $951,000 so far median for Orange County, and we started the year in January at 950. So this may end up being truly just a zero, a whole big nothing sandwich of a year, which is kind of what we expected. Last year was a monster. This year is the plateau effect. So it's incredibly boring, but it's not falling. The sky is not falling. Prices aren't crashing people. It's boring, sure, but you don't have to like run for the hills and sell your house while you still can. We're just not there. Right. That's the update this week.
Well, before we jump into the meat of the show today, let's talk about the market update just a little bit, because what I am seeing you go through right now is maybe there is one silver lining to having less inventory and more days on the marketplace. And I think that, you kind of forewarned, we had a couple of shows about what to look for in a realtor and that idea of buyer beware, but really consumers need to educate themselves on what makes a great partner in a real estate broker or realtor. And you're spending a lot of time more in a consultative model with your clients.
Yes. Yes. And that's exactly why I told Rick Sharga years ago, and we continue to have the same conversation, wherein he predicted that realtors like me and brokers like me would be out of business. And I said, no, all this technology is going to take the minutia off my plate so I can be the consultant that people need. And that's why it's so exciting to see that these resources are coming, because I shouldn't have to worry about getting document from point A to point B. And I know you're living that dream right now with a broker out of state, so I couldn't help you. But yeah, people, it's curling our hair to see this experience, and just the minutia that we shouldn't have to deal with. All of that should be handled through technology, so we can really get into the weeds on the nuance of the deal and the legality and.
Yeah, I think your prediction early on that this market is going to fundamentally reshape the population of realtors and those who hang their hat in that profession, because it is going to separate those who are the true professionals who dig in as consultants and market analysts and embrace technology, and those who don't.
Right. Because the technology is going to take care of that. Forgive this expression, but it's going to take care of the dumb stuff. Any monkey can stamp that or check that box. Exactly. So let's just let the AI and the technology take care of all that is rote, so that we can be the advisors we're supposed to be. And that is going to be the ultimate, leveling of the playing field, because the people who aren't consultants aren't going to be able to keep up. And there are far too many licensees right now. I mean, you've seen my September report, people. It's coming out soon. If you want it, you got to go to realveracity.com. It's going to be posted in a few more days. But yeah, the market, she's changing, man.
It is.
All
right. Let's
So,
talk about what
yeah.
you observed there.
I don't even know where to start. For those of you who haven't been tuning in, Kara is my chief brand officer, and she's also the founder of Alta Lunas. She's a top public relations agency and a frequent contributor here to OC Talk Radio. So she comes on to help keep me on track and ask me questions, so I'm pointed in the right direction. So
Always good to be here. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you, Paul, my old-time friend. Long-time friends.
Let's thank each other here. It's a good. I thank both of you for coming in, because you give us insights to the one question everybody has in their mind: what's happening? Where is this all going? And what's the future look like?
Right.
And I think how much of us, our wealth is tied up in our real estate here. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? What's really cool about today's show is, while Wendy talked about what happened in the market last week or in general, that's all in the rear view mirror. But what's really exciting is what is on the horizon. Right?
Well, and what's interesting is that at this iOi summit, there were far more people from the different strata, like we had said. There was everything from angels to VC investors, and there were small startup companies, and there were reps from Google and Amazon.
So let's set the stage for that. So as you said, About 2 weeks ago, you attended the iOi Summit. And iOi is shorthand for Innovation, Opportunity, and Investment.
Right.
And this was the fourth annual summit. You know, we're coming out of COVID, so it certainly had a different flavor and different excitement. And as evidence of that, there was what, about 600 prop tech leaders there, futurists, investors, and just overall forward thinking real estate professionals who came together in LA, and we're talking about this industry's future. And you know, right now we're seeing a lot of headlines about potential doom and gloom, and a lot of this is simply doom scrolling in order to excite the market.
Right.
But what's really interesting is what's going to be happening next, and I think this should give some assurance and confidence to everyone when they're looking at real estate, whether you're on the investor side, the homeowner, the buyer, or even other entrepreneurs looking to get into this market, right?
Right. And you know me, I tend to be a bit of a pragmatist. And I'm not the sunniest personality, even though, you know, I may joke around a lot, but I'm not. I mean, I'm very conservative and I hope for the best, but I plan for the worst. I was on the edge of my seat. I was so disappointed that I had to go outside to conduct a lot of these interviews and miss a lot of the presentations because it was so exciting. And it was all about what if. I mean, change is here, people, and it's not just in real estate. I mean, our entire world is changing, but because we all live somewhere, there are so many layers and so much nuance to the conversations that were had there because it all lands on us as humans, and it, in one way or another, touches on our homes. So it's not only touching on us and changing what's happening outwardly. The technology it's shifting the economic landscape. I mean, I had no idea that through blockchain technology and digitizing our personal individual payment habits, we're actually going to democratize lending. And people who are underserved and underserved communities are now, through the things that I've witnessed at this summit, they're going to have opportunities they never had before. And that's going to have such change on our society. It's phenomenal. I mean, it was just a joyful, joyful place. Everyone was excited.
And once again, technology is able to do this, and it's time of really exciting, not something to be feared.
Right.
But before we get into some of the specifics, just walk us through the overall event. What was happening here, just generally, what did you see, and tell us more about the organizer of it.
Yeah, so the speakers were discussing specifically the world of technology and how it's going to reshape our world. So it's about PropTech, property technology, and entrepreneurs. A big part of it was this pitch session. So a bunch of entrepreneurs were selected to pitch their companies and the technology and explain what problem it is that they're solving and how they're solving it. And that was like, think Shark Tank, you know, that kind of thing. Fascinating. It was just so encouraging to see that there are these brilliant people who are developing technology to do so much social good, not just make a buck. You know, they were about, how can I do something that will change the world and leave it better than I found it? Phenomenal. And for all of this to come together, like you said, you know, through COVID, through the pandemic, this was only the fourth summit. And they had people there from, like I said, Realtor.com, Google, Amazon, all the way down to these new startups. There were a couple startups from Canada there. It was most impressive. The National Association of Realtors hit it out of the park. They really did.
So what was the overall mood there? You know, of course, everyone can reference COVID, and we understand what that was like. But the world's also flirting with potentially global softening of the economy. And at least here in the United States, we are grappling with fundamental issues that you already referenced. Housing affordability, the low inventory, and really just, you know, as we've talked about before, just the overall concept of home ownership. Is it still the American dream to own a home? Is that even an achievable dream? So how did these diverse issues impact the speakers, the attendees? Did you hear about it was informing their very reason to attend the iOi Summit? Just what was the mood there?
You know, that's really a great question. And I would have to say the mood was jubilant. And I wasn't expecting to go into a technology summit and see so many people bouncing around like they were at a rock concert, literally. They were smiling and laughing and thrilled to see each other. And I was like, what is going on here? I mean, did they all have a cocktail party that I wasn't invited to? Because they're just like happy and high on life.
You would have been invited to it, I'm sure.
Next year. But what I found interesting was that everyone wanted to tackle the global issues that affect us as human beings. And we were all there from every part of the US and Canada talking about housing shortages and inequality in housing, the lack of affordability, improving equity. It was a fairly universal statement. And we had people there that were speaking, experts speaking about green and environmentally friendly housing and materials and what we can do to do that better, all the way down to how can we improve, like I said, the credit and finance for people so that everybody can have a chance at it. Because, yeah, the American dream of home ownership took a beating starting in 2008. And the notion of I have to be a homeowner to be a decent member of society kind of went out the window. And I think we swung too far away from it. It's like, no, it's not undignified to be a homeowner. And studies continue to show that when more than half of a population in an area owns their home, the overall economy improves. There is a ripple effect to it. So it's not just my personal satisfaction with being a homeowner. It's about this contributes to the local economy overall. So there's benefit to all of us when we enhance home ownership. So should everyone own a home? No. But the majority actually should, because it helps them build intergenerational wealth as well as contribute, to everybody else around them.
Yeah, it's not only about intergenerational wealth, it's also about knowing that you're putting down roots in a neighborhood or a community. You want it to improve. You want the schools. You want to be
Right.
involved in local nonprofits.
Right.
You have a reason to at least being cordial or nice to your neighbors because you're going to hopefully spend time with them or at least be able to see them for years to come. Yeah.
There's a really good book that was written about suburbia and how it ruined community. And because there's a psychology to it, but exactly to your point, when you know your neighbors and you are concerned about them and they're concerned about you, how you behave and the decisions that you make about your own home, how you drive down the street, the volume at which you entertain yourself at home, all of that stuff, it becomes part of the fabric of polite society. And we got to a point when we started putting our garages in front of our houses, it created this sort of wall, like, don't come near my castle. I don't want to talk to you. And we don't really interrelate the way we used to. And I'm seeing social scientists are talking about literally changing the way houses are formed. And now with social ride sharing, many won't have garages at all. But there's going to be more of this community because we need to come back to it.
So are garage doors the new moats?
Yes.
All
They're the
right, then.
moats of the
They're
70s.
the moats of the 70s. Wow.
Right? The
All
whole
right.
get off my lawn, kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. A big part of this conference was the future of real estate and the future of property technology. And as part of that, you even were able to hear from futurists at the conference, people like Thomas Frey, the founder of the Da Vinci Institute, and also Google's top futurist, Andrew Baum, who's professor of management practice and leader of the future of real estate at Oxford University, right?
His accent was delightful. I gotta tell you.
Why is it, just as an aside, as Americans, we always believe that a British accent affords one an extra level of intelligence or sophistication, right?
It's really patently unfair, isn't it?
That's why Madonna adopted that fake accent, huh?
Hey, let's not trash Midge. Or is it
No, Madge.
Madge. Sorry, Madge.
Sorry, Madge. All right, but I digress. All right, so back to our futurists. So they delivered perspectives on technology will change everything from the food we eat,
Yes.
to how we communicate,
Yes.
and to how real estate will navigate disruption. And it may not seem like talking about the food we eat or how we communicate has anything to do with real estate, but this show is all about the SoCal estate of mind, and the home is really a metaphor for everything that we house and nest in life. So let's talk about what you learned. Let's start about, something like, traditionally the real estate sector is traditionally slow moving, but there's some hyperactivity or perhaps even hyper growth that is going on and will be going on because of technology. Can you talk about just how PropTech is changing that model, and we go from something that's slow moving into what we're seeing on other industries that are fueled by technology today?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that quickly because I didn't realize, not being an economist, that real estate is considered a bit of a laggard. It's a very slow moving sector of the economy, and so it's weighted that way. And the people who were global economists were saying because of prop tech and because of the exponential advances, it's going to change the way real estate plays into the economy globally. And that was something I had never considered, and I thought that was truly fascinating. But yeah, the things they were talking about that have a trickle down effect or a ripple effect, if you will, that will hit us at home were things like lab produced food. And I'm like, okay, so making hamburger in a lab affects us how? And it was Frey who was talking about this. And he said, okay, so lab produced meats, think about it. Now we no longer have to have all of these cattle ranches. What's going to happen with all that land? And what's going to happen with the methane gas that these animals put into the atmosphere? And that played into the other conference, part of the conference that talked about global warming. So there was this unexpected interrelation of all these scientific facts. And he was saying, okay, so there are countries where the masses are starving because they can't produce food. So in Israel, they're already producing all of these organic meats in the lab. How many starving people is that going to feed? What's that going to do to their population? What's then going to do to their housing needs? And those people who are now better fed have better functioning minds, because we know that health and mental acuity are intimately linked. So now we're going to have this larger, healthier pool of working class people in these far-flung places that are going to be contributing to the workforce and economy, and most of them are going to be trained in technology. And again, my head was just exploding, going, oh my gosh. And this started with hamburger in the lab. I had no idea. And then he went on again, Frey, brilliant man. You guys have to check out the Da Vinci Institute. It's phenomenal. He was saying, okay, so think about things like this. People who live in rural areas, like my grandmother lived in a remote area outside Salem, Oregon. A self-driving, automated vehicle could be sent to her home full of all this medical equipment. She steps into it, sits in a chair. It runs diagnostics. There's a live doctor somewhere else in the world talking to her, reading these diagnostics, helping her figure out what she needs to do next, dispensing medication right there on the spot, or just locking the door and driving her to the hospital. How is that going to change our world? And we're not that far away from it. He was the same one that said, okay, in New York, everyone would put on their parka and go walk a few blocks to the bodega. Well, now you're going to use your smartphone app and it's going to come to the curb in front of you. You're going to walk out there in your jammies and get your chips and your Coke and your late night munchies or whatever your vices are. It's going to scan you or your eyes or whatever, charge you and drive away to the next person. So we're not going to have to use real estate to house these services anymore. They're going to be decentralized and just dispersed and sent out to us. And then he went on further to say, of course, there's going to be a lot more drones, which we know is coming. I love that. But he also said the drones are going to be large enough and strong enough to be taxis.
Wow.
And transport people and transport goods and transport construction materials. So we're not going to be so reliant upon trucks in the roadways and all of that. It was just crazy. And then he went down this rabbit hole, which made my head hurt. And I know it's not about houses, but I have to tell you, he was talking very specifically about America and about our right to bear arms. And he goes, okay, so if a drone belongs to a private citizen, do they have the right to arm their drone?
Wow.
And who polices whose drones are armed and whose aren't and what they do with them? And I was like, oh, wow, my head hurts.
And therefore, in the standard ground states, if the drone is an extension of oneself or one's property,
you're going where he said.
Yeah.
Who gets to shoot it down?
Who gets to shoot it down?
Yes.
And if it is shot down, what is the legal retaliation or protectionism measures that could be put in place?
And so, again, I went down a rabbit hole, but this, I think, just exemplifies how technology is changing our world in every capacity. And as Frey said, the technology grows exponentially. So our rate of technological advancement now is 40 times faster than it was 10 years ago. In another 10 years, it's going to be 400 times faster. We're going to have so much technology and so much smarter a society and civilization that we're going to abolish many of the medical issues that we have. We're going to learn how to, if we can grow meat in the lab, why can't we regrow, tissue to regrow a heart, or to fix, holes in one's heart or whatever. It was just mind blowing.
which then enters into another realm that we've touched upon on the show, and I know you want to devote at least an episode to, is this silver tsunami that's hitting America of the aging of America. And as we live longer, we are seeing the rapid increase of things of cognitive decline, of dementia, of Alzheimer's, of other related cognitive disorders. And where will our seniors live longer term, because we don't have the infrastructure for that?
Right.
Can this be solved with med tech? Can it be solved with brain hack? It can be solved with prop tech.
It was fascinating to hear them debate this and lob this issue around, because it was a conversation that was had at length. And there were many nuanced discussions ranging from, yes, med tech is farther down the road than we are now, but robotics and humanoid robots that can actually be in the room with someone who is combative and would harm a human nurse can have a robot that is so human-like that they can calm the patient down when they're having a manic moment and dispense medications and not be harmed in the process. And there are studies that are already showing that robotic pets and robotic companions do improve the mental state of the owners who have them or the recipients who have them. So that's going to be our next very immediate step. We're already seeing robotic pets and dogs and things that are out there, and they do work as therapy animals.
Well, Japan had pioneered that and looked at that decades ago because of their aging population and the decline in birth rate. So how do you continue to honor the most elder members of our society without having the young people there to be able to take care of them?
Well, yeah, otherwise you make a slave of the younger generation to the older, and there's got to be balance. And I think technology fills that gap.
It's a depressing subject, but it could have a glimmer of hope with technology. But in kind of a fun way, we're both Gen X. I'm thinking of the Jetsons, and
Right.
instead of food, the distribution of your daily vitamin, the little pill that give you all the nutrients you need, and then the taxis, the automatic driving, but also just the robots that are there for automation and to take care of us. So, we could be within a generation of that becoming commonplace.
We could be, but what I saw there, and I don't know if it was just because it was filtered a bit for PropTech, what I saw there is they didn't predict that humans were going to get away from all of the nuance that makes us happy. We like experiences. We like savoring a meal. We like a glass of wine with a friend. We like a beautiful sunset. We like fresh flowers and how they're perfectly imperfect. So science, I think, is only going to help us enjoy what we enjoy more and better and longer. So I don't see us going to like little supplement pills and that's it, because we need the experience, and it's going to help us have that. It's going to help other people who don't have access to it also have it, which is really joyful.
And then bringing that back to real estate, though, it does change potentially the infrastructure in which we build, right? Like you
Everything.
you even heard a reference to Coachella, right?
Right. Yeah. Again, that was at Fry. He said, all these people who rent Airbnbs or whatever or are camping, they can just pre-order a luxury hotel pod. It will drive itself to wherever you are, and you camp out in it or whatever. It's got its own solar power. It's self-sustaining. You have the refrigerator and you store your food there. It locks safely, so you go to the concert and come back to your pod, and when it's over, it drives itself away.
So one's investment in commercial real estate could actually be one's investment in commercially viable mobile real estate.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right.
Super exciting.
And then, going back to that issue of, what you said, your grandmother or others living before could not live in rural areas if they were concerned about medical or ambulances being able to get to them in time. But these advancements in prop tech could allow us to actually spread out something that was a little bit of a trend, of course, during COVID. And we're now all kind of grappling with, do we really have to all live next to each other, or could we take over those lands that were used for ranching, and that becomes one of the solutions to housing instability and affordability?
It could be. And I had this very conversation 6 or 7 years ago when I was debating, okay, where do I want to live out my golden years? Where do I want to retire? And I was looking at places in Europe and in France. And one of my big decisioning factors was, how close is this to the medical facilities I'm going to need? Because I've got I've got a cardiac condition. I've got a congenital heart defect. So as I age, it's only going to get worse, or maybe not. But that used to be foremost in my mind, and now it doesn't need to be. It's super exciting. I could live on the edge of a cliff or on the edge of a river if I want to. Doesn't matter.
I think that's the definition of freedom. All right. So part of this conference, in addition to the futurists, you were able to participate or hear a pitch battle. And again, a pitch battle is where startup companies pitch their concepts to investors in order to receive funding. And broader than that, it's a way of them building their own brand awareness and buzz, attracting strategic partners, building out their customers. But Shark Tank brought this model to the masses, and so I think a lot of people are familiar with what happens.
Right.
But that is made for TV.
Right.
The actual type of pitch battles that occur, few people other than those in the room, namely the media, investors, the circle of trusted advisors that help these companies are usually there. So, but you got afforded the opportunity. So give us a
saw
sneak
most of
peek.
it.
What did you see?
It was
And then we'll talk about some of them
I
specifically.
wanted to see all of it. I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to see every pitch, but because I was there for OC Talk Radio, very often the people that had time to be interviewed, that needed to happen while other pitches were happening. So I only got to see about a third of it, and I would run in and out and see parts of it. But it was 4 minutes for them to pitch, and they were timed. They had 4 minutes to give their presentation, say, this is the problem, this is how I solved it, this is how I'm going to change the world. And then there was another 4 minutes where the panel of 4 judges would ask them questions. There was Q&A. So 8 minutes total to make your case, and that was it. It was astounding. And again, edge of your seat. Yeah.
Yep. And again, you have 8 minutes to make your case, really 4 minutes in order to entice someone to spend the next 4 minutes to ask questions for you. And you're asking for millions of dollars that could change the trajectory of an industry in our lives.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm sure that they were all hoping for millions of dollars, but the true literal prize from this event was something like $15,000 and being featured. But the being featured part is where you get exposed to all the capital.
Yeah.
All the VCs are like, okay, so someone else did all the heavy lifting, because the people who were pitching were heavily vetted before they were even given the chance to get on that stage. And so then there were those 8 on the stage that were competing. So by the time you win it, you're going to get a lot of attention. And I didn't know that one of my friends was pitching.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's testament to your longevity in this industry and the breadth of your network.
I was so blown away. I saw Michael running back and forth at the event. And I'm like, Michael. And then it was so crazy busy. We kept missing each other, but yeah.
All right. So the pitch battle of the iOi Summit was in partnership with Second Century Ventures, which is NAR's
Right.
strategic investment arm.
Yes.
So forward-thinking startups pitch their innovation solutions to a panel of veteran judges, right?
Yes.
And they're addressing some of the biggest issues and investment opportunities in real estate. If you could, can you summarize what was your number one takeaway from this pitch battle?
I did not realize just how sophisticated these companies already are. I thought they were really going to be more mom and pop-ish startups that were maybe in alpha or beta stage. But no, these are already successful companies that are on their own, and they're just looking for the next step of growth. So I was completely unprepared for just how massive they are and how professional they were and how successful they already were, all of them. It was shocking.
Yeah, that's where the hypergrowth part of the innovation cycle occurs.
Yeah, I heard some gossip I don't think I was supposed to hear, but somebody was saying, yeah, one of these guys that's up there on stage, he just got $60 million.
Excellent.
So he had already received this additional infusion for his company, but needs more because it's that expensive to launch new innovation.
It absolutely is.
But it's life-changing.
Okay, but a few of the companies stood out for you, right?
So many, but I did have a few favorites, I have to admit.
Okay.
I had a couple of favorites.
And you're going to have them on the show in future episodes. Plus, we're going to be airing some of your interviews,
Right.
Wendy. And we also will be sharing them on social media. So make sure to follow Veracity Real Estate Company and then Wendy Ross specifically. And you'll be able to.
The real Wendy Ross on Instagram if you want to check me out there on the gram.
Perfect.
But yeah, Revive and
Let's
Form
start with
Free.
them. All right, let's start with Revive then.
Yeah,
What is it?
it is a company that my friend started. I had no idea, which was so delightful. So Michael Aladawi has years, decades of experience like I do as a real estate broker, boots on the ground, but he was also a very successful developer. So he learned what it takes to build a house ground up or what it takes to completely remodel a home. And he started to see that when it comes to reselling homes, the big institutional investors that have a lot of money, they're able to update a home to whatever the current marketplace tastes are. And then when they resell it, they get more return on their investment. Mom and pop home sellers and their mom and pop brokers don't necessarily have that budget. So they can't update a home to bring it to today's current standards and get max dollar out of it because they just don't have the budget. And of course, brokers like me, we're happy to front the money for our clients. But when you start fronting $40,000 and $50,000 per client, and you've got 5 of them, that's a lot of leverage to have out there. So it becomes onerous. And he saw there's no equity in this, so he created a business, Revive, where they come in based upon his vast experience and his relationships with contractors and suppliers. They help you assess what needs to be done to bring the house to the optimal condition, most sensibly, cost effectively, and then gets it done quickly, manages the whole project for you beginning to end. You don't have to lift a finger, bills you through escrow, and there's no upcharge on it. You only pay for actually what the costs were for the improvements because he gets his discounts on the back end.
So this platform could be for someone who has multiple properties,
Yeah.
but it could be even for a one-time.
It could be for me. Let's say I wanted to
Okay,
sell my
yeah.
house tomorrow. I don't, but let's say I did. And I recognize that these are the colors that people want to see in paint, and my roof needs to be redone, and I should add solar and a solar battery, and I should do this, this, and this to appeal to buyers. And I don't want to pay, $100,000 to do that. Hey, Michael, Revive, send your team. And they come out and they figure it out. They line everything up, and boom, they bust a move, and they're fast.
And part of their pitch, Revive, was some really shocking statistics about home ownership, right? And how so many owners leave money on the table. And the show is all about helping you maximize your investments. So what could our listeners learn from some of these Revive stats?
Well, they're going to probably get 15 to 20% more out of their home when reselling. And if you look at the median priced home here, that could be $100,000 to $200,000. That's a big chunk of change to have added to your bottom line. It really is. And it's hard because homeowners and even brokers like me, we don't even know if we're getting taken advantage of by contractors because it's not our daily grind. So having someone who deals with them on a national level in multiple states, who's done this for decades, there's a great deal of peace of mind in that part too. You're not overspending on the improvements, and you're getting max rewards at the end of it.
So for the consumer, the homeowner, they can get the reward of not missing out on profit,
Selling for more.
for more, of having this vetted network of contractors, because we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to assess them.
Right.
And then it is the funding opportunity there. But there's also a play there for realtors like yourself, for broker owners.
Sure. I don't have to tie up hundreds of $1,000s with my own business line of credit.
And you talked about how many of these prop tech ventures were really creating greater equity and equality and the democratization. So could this Revive platform allow smaller brokers or realtors to compete with the big guys?
Yes.
Ah.
Yes. A lot of the big names that we hear in the marketplace are bigger because they were better funded at the beginning. And they're not necessarily better, which I am tragically learning. Not everyone who's a broker is better than an agent, and so on. And so, yeah, a lot of these big names, some of them are great, I'm not saying, but there is a gap, and it has a lot to do with money. It has a lot to do with, they had the means to do these things for their clients and grow their business and grow their reputation. And so other brokers who come from more humble beginnings can't compete. And this really levels the playing field for them. It's super exciting.
And that's really exciting because the founder of it has a similar background to you.
Yes.
So he's been able over the years to digest a lot of these gaps in the market and really consider the profitability, the accessibility, both for homeowners and for professionals like yourself. So you're going to have him on the show here?
We're going to get into it. We're going to get in the weeds with Michael when he's on the show. And I think his perspective is this was the perfect time for him to start Revive because his perspective was influenced by so many things, not least of which is as a young boy being an immigrant family. So he saw his parents come to this country and start with very little and grow their business through markets and things like that, like grocery markets, and taught him work ethic. And he's truly a self-made man. I have great respect for that. And he wants to create opportunity for other families like his. It's beautiful. He was one of my husband's dearest friends. So it was bittersweet because I haven't seen him since my husband's funeral. And he and I were just like hugging and sobbing and crying. And people were like, what are they doing? But, it was a joyful reunion. I loved seeing him.
And how cool to get together and to be able to talk about the future.
We're going to make it a better place together.
Beautiful.
So yeah, he's doing what he's doing. But my other favorite, I was really surprised, Form Free. And Brent and Eric, again, made my head explode on the daily. I can't wrap my brain around blockchain and cyber anything, and crypto anything. I just am too old. But they were explaining
No,
that.
take that back.
Okay. I'm just slow learning. I'm slow adopting. But they were explaining how credit is unequal. And I hadn't really understood that until they explained it to me. And they said, we're creating a blockchain situation where every auto payment someone makes, every bit of their income that is automatically deposited, every payment that they make, an investment, everything they do is digitized and it's put into a vault and it's vetted and they can't tamper with it, nor can anyone else. And so the whole bro system, and the cronyism that has influenced credit decisions will be out the window, because this blockchain vault of information about everyone that is stripped of gender, color, nationality, ethnicity, that's all gone. All that is there is the true data about their payment habits, and the AI performs risk analysis. And what they're finding is that a grossly increased percentage, which is great, of people who were otherwise marginalized are actually getting approved for mortgages than ever before. And I was blown away by this fact. Fannie Mae and the VA have already bought into using this method of credit scoring. Which
Have
is
they? Okay, so I was going to ask you, is this
massive.
just a mission-driven company, or are we actually
Oh, no, I'm
seeing
sorry, it's
real
not-
world?
It's not Fannie Mae, it's Freddie Mac. But
Okay.
also, yeah.
So we're seeing real-world applications of
Yes.
freeform.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and some of the mega brokers that are out there, I probably shouldn't say their name until we get the guys on the show for contractual reasons, but a lot of these mega players in the lending industry are like, yeah, we want that because we don't have to spend so much time vetting and authenticating and checking for fraud and all of that, because your blockchain method of assembling this data and delivering it to us makes it untamperable either by us or by the borrower. So it's really true data, and it's opening up homeownership for all these people who would probably never have gotten there.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before, and I think it's maddening to anyone who has tried to monitor their own credit score of what actually goes into it. And if I don't own a home, I don't have some of the traditional things, I do have monthly bills, but that is never considered as part of this snapshot of my credit worthiness.
I don't have an Amex card, so I can't get more credit. But I do pay the cell phones for my 5 children, and I pay my rent on time, and I pay my mother's rent on time, and I pay my health insurance on time, and and this is how much money is being deposited into my bank account, and these are the balances that I maintain, and all of that stuff that no one ever looks at has true value. I would rather give a loan to someone like that who is hardworking and has always paid their rent and their utilities and their kids' stuff on time than someone who's got, 14 Lexuses and a bunch of black cards and they pay when they want to, because then what are you going to do?
You know what? Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to do? Can you
What-
afford to tick them off? They'll just
No.
file bankruptcy.
And start the process
And
over.
start all over
yeah,
again.
Yeah, use the laws there to their advantage.
Exactly.
But think about just also how the economies have changed. So many of the services we use today are on a subscription model.
Right.
So there is a monthly payment there that also speaks to a consumer's creditworthiness, right?
Precisely.
Okay.
All of that is analyzed. I don't understand exactly how they do it, which is why they have to come on the show and explain it to me. But it's fascinating. I mean, truly, they kept talking about democratizing lending and democratizing credit. And I didn't realize there was so much of an imbalance and a gap there too, but clearly there is.
Yeah, yeah. We and if you think about it, in so many areas, what one pays in rent would be
Mm-hmm.
equal to, or perhaps even more than, a mortgage payment.
Right.
And if
Which
you,
makes it harder for them to
yes,
save.
you can't save, but it shows that you can meet that monthly nut and actually pay for a mortgage.
Hmm. And one of the prop tech companies, not one of my favorite, well, it was one of my favorites, but I just don't have time, is called Stake. And they proposed a model wherein landlords can give rebates to tenants who pay on time and take that rebate money and actually put it into an investment account for them and help them grow it for a future down payment. It's phenomenal.
That's absolutely amazing. We got to have
Phenomenal.
them on the show
We do.
then. Yeah,
We
yeah.
do. All right.
One more thing before we turn it over to Paul, kind of on this idea of equity and equality. You know, it's no secret that real estate industry, like so many other industries, have been traditionally male dominated. But you said you were quite surprised, pleasantly surprised, by seeing a true balance at the show, right? Of genders.
Yeah, there weren't, in terms of the speakers overall and the presenters overall, it wasn't 50-50 men and women, but there was about 40% women, which I was very impressed by.
Okay.
And from all races and ages and demographics, it was very, very equitable. I loved that. And most of the MCs were women. Actually, no, all of the MCs. So the people who are actually driving the show at the summit, they were all women, and Wendy was wonderful. Wendy Forsythe, that's something. The Wendy Power was there, and then some of the, I think, the most important hot topic discussions, like about housing affordability and housing equity, all the fair housing stuff, as well as the green and environmental panels. They were all women,
Amazing.
100% women.
Well, I love the Wendy's in my life, and so Wendy Forsythe, I will send you the show if you in case you're out there. All right, so we do need to turn it back over so Paul can ask some questions and can talk about our sponsor. But just real quick, what is your last takeaway about the iOi Summit that you want your audience to know? Any final thing we didn't touch on?
Like you had said, AI terrifies a lot of people, and not only is it wonderful and far more good than bad, but the people who create the AI are aware that they actually have to rein it in and put boundaries around it. But this technology, it's like the ocean, it lifts all the ships. So it's not just the wealthy are going to get wealthier, everyone is going to be elevated and their life enhanced by all this technology.
Beautiful vision. Glad you're part of it, and
Yeah.
can't wait to have some of these folks on the show and to see it come to life. All right, Paul.
It's all you.
I don't even know how to follow this
Right?
act here.
Told you we had a tight show today.
It really is. I was just listening, fascinated here, and it just reminds me again of what we keep saying. I mean, this is proof positive. You really do have a large strategic group of partners, thought leaders that you run, and you swim in a pretty large, fascinating pool of people here. One of them certainly our sponsor. I don't want to overlook them, Ford and DiIulio. They're an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm. They've got experienced attorneys from the big law firms, but they bring you that big law firm experience in a more personalized boutique setting. The founders set it up with the concept, very simple, of aligned interests, where they're trying to get the results you're looking for, not just trying to drag out the litigation and drive up the billing, and where they're rewarded for being efficient and yet effective, where they engage in the relentless pursuit of your goals, whether in litigation, mediation, or even trial if it comes to that. If that's something you'd like to try, check them out, FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio.com. They should have been there. I bet there are a lot of people in Orange County that wish they had been there. Were there many or any other brokers like you there, or is this something they just sort of wait to hear from on high what happened?
It was badly promoted because I actually seek out information about events that are coming, and I didn't find this. I mean, thank goodness you brought my attention to it.
They came to us, I think,
Yeah.
largely because of your show, and they
Yeah.
said, hey, would you be interested in covering this? And we said, absolutely.
And that was feedback I gave them because there was a post-event questionnaire, and I said, you did a very poor job of letting broker owners know this was happening, because more of us would have come. You would have had 4 times the attendance. I met one gentleman who's a broker in Orange County, Joshua Jacobs, and we interviewed him, and he's going to be on the show. He's fascinating human. So, and there were a few from New York, there were a few from Chicago, but they were people who were deeply embedded with NAR, and so they kind of heard through, the
Right.
cool kids club what was going on. But otherwise,
But I wonder, because you've talked about this before, even when you had, what was the guy's name who's the president of the California?
Katrina?
Otto. And he gave a talk here. He's from Northern California, comes down. You said even that was kind of sparsely attended. I wonder if it's just a question of promotion, which is hard these days. Where do you go tell these stories? Newspapers are drying up. Newspapers, TV shows.
Well, they have their
and all
means.
that.
They have communication.
I just wonder
Brand
if,
journalism, Paul. Brand journalism.
well, yeah, and I just wonder how many people at the field level really are interested or can keep up with this. I think some of them are feeling just overwhelmed by technology, and so they're just trying to hang on.
I would venture to guess less than 20%, and that goes back to the conversation Kara and I were having earlier, and that is there are people who are just checking boxes trying to get a commission,
Yeah.
and there are true advocates and advisors. And there are very few of us who actually are consultants and advisors. Very few. And
And
we're the ones that would go.
Not to give a shameless plug to our previous show about commercial real estate, but Barry was on today with the vice chairman of Cushman and Wakefield.
Wakefield.
And they were both saying, back in the day when they both started, it was just hustle, and it was just, hand holding, and it wasn't, you didn't have to really understand much about, you just had to be out there
Yeah.
and active.
You just had to be friendly and out there and smiling and dialing.
And
Pretty
now,
face.
and now he's saying that the differentiator is you got to know people that really understand the market. Should I sell? Should I buy? How do I do this? How do I maximize the return? How do I negotiate? How do I go through all these? It's much more of an involved process, and it's not just the friendly handshaker who's there to close the deal.
And I think that's largely driven by technology, because
Yeah,
technology now puts so
exactly.
much information in the consumer's hands. They don't need us to answer the dumb questions. They've got that. They need us to dig deeper and help guide them in ways that they don't have expertise.
Exactly, because in your industry, as in commercial real estate, once upon a time, you were the holders of the info. If I wanted to go find a place to rent, if I wanted to go find a place to put my office or a place to put my head at night here, you had the only access to the
Precisely.
listings.
And that's why there was so much shenanigans.
Right. But now everybody's got that information. So why do I need you? I need you because this is more complex than I thought.
Right.
I've got some strategic decisions to make. Do I do this? How does this affect my taxes? How does it affect my future?
Right.
Is this really the fit for me that I'm hoping it to be? Because I may stay in this for a long time.
Yeah. And there are some real estate people who don't want to be advisors. They don't
No.
want to be held
They want to be
accountable for their word.
transactional, right?
Yeah. And there are people like me that I really, really want to know. I want to know why things are the way they are. I want to be able to tell my clients, well, this operates this way, that operates that way. And I'm not telling you which to pick, but this is, to my understanding, what these are, so they can make a better informed decision for themselves.
It seems so obvious, and yet I think it's so lacking. And I wonder why more of these people, there are a billion, when times get tough, everybody gets laid off and say, I'll go get a real estate license. I'm just going to go sell some homes.
It's super easy to get in.
Right.
There's virtually no oversight. And as I mentioned when we had the appraiser in, even appraisers are required to mentor and work under a senior person for a
Yeah.
set period of time until they've proven that they've learned some things. We don't even do that with realtors.
No.
I mean, day one, you don't even have to have your license in hand yet. The state issues it, and you can go out there and help someone sell a $4 million property.
And why I saw this in my own life, my son-in-law who decided not to sell, but he was so interested in just hiring his cousin who's been doing this for 6 months. Somehow that's going to be cheaper. Somehow
Yeah.
they're going to hustle more for me or something here. And I'm like, is that really all it takes? Isn't it more? Aren't there some decisions you got to make? Aren't there
Yeah.
some knowledge you got to have?
I think reality TV kind of screwed us up there, because they just show how easy it is and how much fun it is.
Yeah.
And they're not showing the nitty gritty behind the scenes maddening part of it, because that's not good TV. Like right now, I have a buyer who's a very sophisticated business person buying a property that's listed by somebody who's a very new agent. She hasn't been able to write the name of her own client, the sellers, correctly on all the documents. And I'm not kidding. She doesn't know the name of her own
But
client.
I want to entrust her with the sale of the most important asset I have in my life.
Holy
here.
Mother of Christ. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to get more time to get the buyer's part done, because his lender won't underwrite him because the seller's name is incorrect.
Yeah, and FYI to that agent's broker, Wendy's been mentoring this agent simply because she feels
I feel
bad,
bad for her.
and she wants the deal done for her own client. So her decision is to help this agent actually learn her job.
It's
So
just sad.
Yeah.
I feel bad for these people, but reform needs to happen in our industry.
So the other thing that strikes me as I'm listening to this is the good. I tend to think of real estate as a lagging, old school, analog industry. It's filling out the form by hand. It's driving up and pounding the stake in the sign. It's walking door to door and passing out flyers. It's
yeah.
very much like that. And so when I hear about all this technology coming in, I think that's going to shake out the industry, but also tells me they believe in the industry. If they're going to invest this kind of capital into it, this isn't a lagging, sagging, oh, go put your money somewhere else because housing's not going to do much for you here.
Well, I think we need to take a look at the basic necessities for survival: food, shelter, sleep.
Yeah.
So housing ticks two of those: sleep and shelter. And we
Yeah.
often eat there too. It is a fundamental need. The need for housing is never going to go away. And these yahoos who think that it's easy to help someone make their greatest investment in their life is tragic. And the fact that we've allowed it to get here saddens me.
Well, thank goodness there are people, future leaders out there thinking this out, and that you really, I think we're one of the rare few in the county that were there in the middle of this pack, talking to these people, interacting from them, hearing what they have to say,
Yeah.
and bringing this back to us, like bringing fire to the natives here.
It really is. I just can't wait to get them on the show. So many wonderful people and turned on and dialed in and impassioned. And it's not about the bottom line. I hope they make millions because they're doing it for the right reasons. They're going to change our world for the better.
I hope so, because that's really one of the underlying problems
Yeah.
here is the inequity of the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and that means
the
more and
gap
more
widens.
that gap, more and more people are not just that they're choosing not to own a house because they think it's too risky or too much effort, or I'm not going to have a big family and I don't need the big yard and all the other stuff that goes with owning a house. I think it's just the lack of ability to do it. Why am I
Yes.
even going to dream? I can't hit that.
Yeah. Well, and let's just take that thought a step further. These companies are doing the right thing for the right reason. And coming off this show and this high of all these people doing the right thing for the right reason, I really want to plug a big event that's coming up.
Yeah, please.
I'm a longtime supporter of Veterans Legal Institute, and I'm their newest board member, which is exciting.
Hooray.
And I just want all our listeners to pay attention and call me and let me know, do you have a product or a service or an experience that you are willing to donate to their cause? Their gala is November 7th. I need to get all of these donations in really next week. And by experience, I mean, do you have a nice boat, even a Duffy boat that someone might be able to take out for free?
Those little electric boats that go around
Right.
the harbor. Yeah.
Right. Does someone in your family fly helicopters and they could take them on, take people on a flight, so yeah, you'd be donating time and the gas, but it's for a very good cause because Veterans Legal Institute primarily takes at-risk veterans and gets them off the street, gets them medical care, gets them job retraining, helps them get in touch with the benefits they're owed, but they can't find them themselves. And if each one of us does a little bit, we're going to make a massive, massive impact on our veterans here in Orange County. So please, please, please reach out to me. If you have questions about what might be valuable, I'd be happy to vet that.
I'm going to speak up and offer something that I hadn't thought of until you did this, but I'm moved in the moment here.
I love it.
What do we offer? We offer a chance to tell your story and to
Yes.
record it. Why don't we give away a free session for somebody to come in and tell their story?
Thank
That's
you,
beautiful, Paul.
There you go. Well,
Thank
I don't
you,
know
Paul.
who would buy that, but there's a lot of people that would love to tell their
Yes.
story, share their story with the world. You get archived. They can put it on social media. They can save it forever. They can blast it out the world. Here's who I am. Here's my story.
I'll get you the donation form. We're going to make that happen.
Okay.
Thank
It's
you,
a
Paul.
business audience that is a phenomenal media and marketing tool for anyone who wants to bid on it. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. And so anyone who has a second home or an Airbnb or anything where they could donate a couple nights stay anywhere in the world, we'll take it. We love you for it. I appreciate it. Reach out to me, The Real Wendy Ross, on Instagram, or contact me through realveracity.com, or just call me 949-870-2424. I'm not shy. Just call me.
But you better call several times because she's busy. She's all over the place at events and hanging out with thought leaders and and changing the world herself here. So I
Getting on a
appreciate.
plane tonight, Paul. Going to Vegas.
Well, I don't know if that's.
It's
you
a
just-
real estate expo. I'm
Oh,
working.
oh, I thought you were just trying to change your
Nope.
luck here.
No, I'm moving and shaking.
All right, good. All right, well, thanks for coming and moving and shaking with us here.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, appreciate it. Well, there you have it, folks. One more reason that you've got to tune in each and every week, because you never know what you're going to find with This Week with Wendy.